and you really want these things, but you don't think that you're good enough to do it for some reason, and therefore you don't take the action. Mm-hmm. And I think it's as simple as this, that if you just took 10% of the action and then got small results, that you can say, okay, yes, well, I can at least do 10% of it. Cool. Next time, can you do 15% of it? Mm-hmm. Can you do 20% of it? Because in my story, I got to a place where I was like 25, 33% of that thing I did. I'm like, well, crap, if I can get 25% of the way there, why can't I get 50?
Welcome back to another episode of The Donkey and the Bee with your hosts, Brett and Laura Chotkevys, where we talk all things marriage, entrepreneurship, and finances.
We sure do.
We sure do, honey.
So today, we're talking about limiting beliefs. Some of the limiting beliefs that we've had in our lives that we've had to overcome, and some of those limiting beliefs that we still have in our life.
So we were discussing this topic, and we had a pre-discussion about this because we were talking about the definition of limiting belief, and we read a few of them, and I'm like, isn't that sound like an insecurity? So I guess I want to have Brett read this definition of limiting belief and then kind of discuss what we were talking about with how it's different than being insecure about something.
So here's one definition that I think is pretty simple. A limiting belief is a state of mind or belief about yourself that restricts you in some way. So the way I think of a limiting belief is it's some kind of block between your mind and the results in your life, your physical state. So you believe something about yourself, and therefore you take no action towards something that you want. You want to become this person, but you don't think that you're not good enough in some way, so therefore you don't take the action towards it. I think that's really the limiting part. It stops you from taking action.
So when you say that, you know what I think of visually. And so I want to say this because maybe someone else is thinking this too. I think of a barricade. Like I think of, construction barricades and stuff. Like I think of those being like stacked on top of each other, those like concrete barricades. And then you're like trucking along doing your thing and like come into this barricade, and the version of you that you want to be, that you're striving for, is on the other side of that barricade. And you look at this barricade, you look up and you're like, I can't climb that thing. So you just stop. Is that kind of what you think of it as? Like you're stopping you from taking action?
I think it's less about like you're just going on your day like la-di-da, and it's more of like you're getting closer and you're concerned and you're fearful and you're like, I'm not worthy to be on this road even. I need to turn around. And you may not even get to that barricade because you're like, I don't even deserve to be here. I need to go that way. People like me that are not good enough, they go over here.
So then what would you say is the difference between that and being insecure or having an insecurity about something?
I think a lot of times you can be insecure on something, but you still take the action. You force yourself to take the action. And sometimes you're insecure and you don't take the action. So I would say insecurity can be on both sides of this, but really the core of something that is a limiting belief is it limits you. It stops you from taking the action. You want something and you don't go after it because you don't think that you deserve that or you're good enough for that or something to that effect.
So an example of being insecure about something would be, this is like something that of course I would say. I love to karaoke. It's like my jam. I love to do it. I think it's the most fun thing in the world. But I would say 90 to 95% of people in the world don't think it's fun. They are insecure about it because they think they have a bad voice. And so what the fun part about karaoke is you bring those people together and you encourage them to do it anyways. And so they can come karaoke with me, be insecure about it, but still get up there and do it, take the action and do it, even though they're super insecure about it.
Yeah. But perhaps, that's a good example of insecurity and overcoming it. It's not like a huge life-changing opportunity that you're not going to do, right? You're not going to decide, I'm not going to pursue being a nurse when that's been my dream, right? Based on insecurity. Like you either think you're worthy of it or you don't. You take the massive action, and this is not something like, I'm going to accomplish it in 5 minutes. This is like, this might take me 6 months or 6 years, right? A bigger thing is usually the context for something like this, a limiting belief.
So what would you say is or has been a limiting belief of yours in the past that you have overcome?
So the first thing that comes to mind is relating to finances. And, we've talked before how we got married very young and had no money, but we were motivated and we always believed that we would do well financially. But defining that well financially, I remember us going back and forth. I remember the first time that I used the compound interest calculator and I got so geeked out on this thing, and you came home from work and I showed you, I'm like, babe, oh my gosh, if we just invest this much money at this interest rate times this many years, we're going to be over a millionaire.
Yeah.
And my mind was blown. And so I thought, financially speaking, that, okay, we can be a millionaire. It is possible to do it. But there was definitely a limiting belief beyond that, right? Like if you told me that we would be worth hundreds of millions or more, right? Not that we are now, but we will be. If you told me that that was going to be the case, there was no possible way. I would not take the action towards that because I didn't believe it was possible. I did believe that I could invest $500 a month at 8 or 10% over the next 20 years and get to a net worth of 1.5 million. That was something I could wrap my mind around, and therefore I would take the appropriate action towards it.
Yeah.
But the action towards, hey, let me be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, I would have laughed at that, not believed it, and therefore not taken the action towards it.
I think mine was more physical. I was a very athletic individual growing up, but I wouldn't say it's like a natural thing for me. And so we started working out pretty regularly, I'd say 7 or 8 years ago. We really just took a step and took it serious, that we knew we had to get physically fit and take that serious. And so I remember we were going to this gym, and they had the rope, the people climbing the rope and touching the top and everything. And I never took action to even try to get better at it because I always told myself, well, you had to be really strong in order to do that. And I remember I was put in a situation where I was like, everybody had to try, like you had to. And I'm like, ugh. And so I tried, and I was trying to get my foot grip on there and like learn the technique. And of course I failed over and over and over and over again so many times, and I kept trying. And so I remember the first day, and I seriously distinctly remember this because it's so ingrained in my mind because it was such a big deal to me. The day that I actually climbed the whole rope and touched the top. And I remember just screaming so loud. I think you were there. I was like,
I was there. I didn't know what was happening. I'm like, did she get hurt? What is she doing? I look up here on top of the rope. I'm like, oh, I guess she's excited.
I was so excited. I don't know. And I literally, it was like, I don't know, like Rambo or something, like hear me roar. I was so excited about it because in my mind, I achieved that goal that I never thought I was ever able to do. And so proving to myself that I could do that was so powerful to me. And now proving to myself that I did do that, now I'm like, okay, what else can I do in my life that's similar to that? And granted, climbing rope to many of you was like, really, Laura, that's all. It's a big deal. And I feel like because I did that, I now can do anything really physically if I really, really wanted to. I really can.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because, so my story on physical stuff, I've always been a very physically fit person, but there were
things. Good for you, babe. Good for you.
Okay, but we got married, and again, in my 20s, super fit and everything, right?
Uh-huh.
I did not believe that I could run a marathon. I don't know, that's probably crazy to some people knowing me now, but I did not think that I was, I don't know, that it was just, that was something I could do. My body just couldn't do it, right? Like I could have run just fine, but I never thought I could actually run a marathon. So fast forward, I've run several 50-mile races and full Ironmans and other things like that. But it was so interesting going back. Like I literally ran a marathon a couple months ago and I didn't train for it. Mm-hmm. I just woke up and like, hey, I knew I signed up for it, right? But I'm like, I'm not going to train for it. I'm turned 40. It's my first marathon at 40. Let's not train. Let's just see what happens. I mean, it sucked, but I finished it. But nonetheless, like I'm now at a place where I know what my body can do. I'm very confident in those things. But it had to be like little baby steps, right? Mm-hmm. Like I wanted to do a full Ironman, and it took me 12 and a half hours to finish this race. But prior to that, I did a triathlon sprint, right? And then I did a half Ironman. And then so I took little actions towards it. I built my confidence. And then once I became more confident, I believed that I could do the next step. And so once I believed that I could do the next step, then I took more action. I took action appropriate to that, and then got results, and then had more confidence, increased my belief, and then took more action, right? And I think that's really the gist of this, is something that is a limiting belief stops you from taking that action. You want to become this person. You're designed for something great, and you really want these things, but you don't think that you're good enough to do it for some reason, and therefore you don't take the action. And I think it's as simple as this, that if you just took 10% of the action and then got small results, that you can say, okay, yes, well, I can at least do 10% of it. Cool. Next time, can you do 15% of it? Can you do 20% of it? Because in my story, I got to a place where I was like 25, 33% of that thing I did. I'm like, well, crap, if I can get 25% of the way there, why can't I get 50? Well, crap, I think I now have the confidence to know if I push and I work hard that I can do this goal. And I may fail 1 or 5 times, but I know I can eventually get there. And so I think that's as simple as that, just to take little baby steps at these things, take massive action towards it, screw it up, and just try it again.
So going back to my limiting belief on climb the rope, I think that belief was instilled in me because I saw other women who were my age, who were way stronger than me, attempt this, right? They attempt to climb the rope and they couldn't do it. Therefore, in my mind, I couldn't do it because they're the same age as me. They're way more ripped than I am, like rippling muscles on their arms and such, and they can't even climb the rope. So I must not be able to do it. So I think that's one reason why we get limiting beliefs, is because we see other people that we think are better than us in certain areas that can't do that thing. Therefore, we believe that we can't do it also. Or there could be a circumstance where you're around individuals who have their own insecurities / limiting beliefs about a certain topic or about a certain thing that you're trying to achieve. And because they themselves think they can't do it, they also put that on you. So they're putting their self-limiting beliefs on you and saying that you can't do something because they themselves can't do it. And so I think that we kind of get those limiting beliefs from those two main reasons: is someone telling you can't do it, or seeing someone who think is better than you in that area that isn't doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting about the rope, and I remember this woman who was ripped,
yes,
who couldn't do it.
Yes.
And rope is just technique.
It's 100%. See, I didn't know that. Yes.
Right? But it's such an analogy for just about everything in life. You see these people fail and you're like, oh, I'm not as good at them. Not knowing that it is just about, how do I learn these little steps in these systems at pretty much everything, right? If you're going to be really good at bodybuilding, man, you know what? A lot of that stuff to lift those heavy weights is a lot of technique. I mean, you need to be strong, but man, like some of these professional lifters, right? Like they barely get off the ground when they're lifting these heavy weights. They don't move them very far at all. You know, another thing regarding your limiting beliefs, so we can talk about you.
Let's do it.
Okay. So we own Platinum Resort, right? The memory care mansions. And we both had zero experience in this, right? Real estate background. I felt very comfortable in the construction side of this, the raising money side, all that kind of stuff. But neither of us were very secure at all about the operation side. And we were put into a place where we had to take ownership of this business and really on the operation side as well, run this thing after we had parted ways with our first director. And you were so scared. And literally, I mean, I don't know how many conversations we had where you just looked at me and said, babe, I can't do it. I just can't do it. Like, you did not believe you were physically, mentally equipped, able to run our company, right? And now, I mean, you run the whole thing. But it was such an interesting thing. And I want to hear your perspective on it, because I don't think it was very long for you to like realize, oh, I can do this. So like, what happened?
I think it's two things on that. I think we're born and raised in California, and we moved to Texas to start an assisted living. So before we moved, while we were still in California, We knew we were going to start this. We knew we were going to move. And, going to church, going to the gym, going to different places, and people would ask like what we're doing. And then we would tell them. The first question back was always like, well, do you have experience in this? And so I think after hearing that like over and over and over and over again, it's like the example I gave earlier. Like people started to put their own self-limiting beliefs on me because of the questions they would ask about this. And so I think that's one. That was like the roots that were planted in me before we even moved to Texas to start this. So that's one reason, I think. And the second reason was I had a person in my life that was not encouraging me to be my best self. And I think that negativity in my life was also a big determining factor of why I myself couldn't do it. So those two reasons together, compiled on top of each other, was the main reason why I literally thought I couldn't do it. And I literally made myself sick over it. Like I got sick over just thinking that I couldn't take ownership of this. And it came a point where I had to. Like there was no other person to take on this role. It was me. And so I kind of was put in a situation where I just had no other option. And I had to take the reins and I had to take the leadership role and I had to own it. And once I did that, it was realizing, okay, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like I was building up this whole fake
mountain.
I guess, yeah, a fake mountain that really wasn't there. It was like smoke and mirrors, And so it was interesting to actually climb this so-called mountain when it was like nothing. It was like a little hill. And it was like, oh, that really wasn't that big of a deal. Okay, well, now I can do that. Like, what else can I do? So I think that's really why that limiting belief was built up in my own mind.
It's interesting watching you go through this because I knew that you could do it. And I had many conversations with you telling you, babe, I know you can do this. You're incredible. You can do this. But it would go in one ear and it was just blocked, right? I mean, it was a clear limiting belief. Like you would take no action towards it. You did not think it was possible until you had to do it. And then it was just like, I don't know, a period of a couple weeks. And it was just like, you came back, it's like, okay, that was easy. Like, I got this. Like, I own this thing now, right? Like, and you've owned it since. And we're expanding, you're opening a bunch of these. And it's something you now know that you can do. And I think it was so interesting that you can take so much time, or people can take so much time delaying and putting off their goals and their dream and just sitting in the pain. And then once you realize you just take some action, like, oh, this isn't that bad. Like, oh, I can actually do this. You may fail a bunch of times, but nonetheless, you're going to get through it. You actually are capable of these things. And it was just like, why did I suffer for so long, right? Like, and you said like there are people in your life speaking negativity in it. And that's real life, right? There's going to be haters and there's going to be people who just, they don't believe in you or they're trying to self-sabotage you and pull you down. But there's also people in your life that are here to encourage you and to push you forward, right? And I think you just need to grab onto those people, remove the other people from your circle. And if this is something that you really want, it is your goal, it's your dream, man, you know what? You just got to do it. You just got to take a little bit of action and realize, okay, I can get that far. Now let's go a little bit further and realize I can get 20%. Well, heck, can I get all the way done? Yeah, you probably can. You might not get it the first time, but you can definitely get there eventually.
If you believe you can, and if you believe that you can't, you're right. It's like that saying, like, it's all in your mind. It's all you, right? If you don't believe you can do it, then you're probably not going to do it. If you believe you can, then I'm sure you can. And so it's all comes back to who's the one person holding you back from your dreams or your ultimate like version of yourself. And that's you. It's looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing that you're not the victim, that no one is really holding you back, that you are the one who has the reins. You're the one who's in control. And I think that's scary for a lot of people because a lot of people just want to pinpoint it on, oh, well, that person's the reason why I didn't make it in life, or this is the reason why I didn't make it, my divorce or my ex or my kids or whatever it may be, right? They want to pinpoint it on something when in actuality, it's back on them. And so look in the mirror, like you are the determining factor. You make the decision on if you want to push past that fear or that limiting belief in your own life.
Yeah. So I guess it goes back to, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and you could have the perfect life, right? Write out some categories. Financially, what would that look like? Relationally, what would it look like? Spiritually, physically, what would that look like? If you could say, if I had this magic wand, what would these important parts of my life look like? And then why? Why is it not like that? It doesn't have to be perfect. It'll never be perfect. But why are you not moving in that direction? If you've identified a certain financial goal or relationship goal and you're not at least moving that direction, then what is stopping you? Why are you taking no action? If there's no action being taken, then it is all on the inside. And that is the process to identify your limiting beliefs. And then maybe you just need to go find some people who can encourage you specifically in those kind of ways. Well, that's it for today's show. I hope that you can identify areas in your life where you have bigger dreams you need to take massive action on and get some people in your life to support you. So on that topic, please share this with someone who you think needs to hear it, that you can encourage them to pursue their dreams, get on the same page with their spouse, hit early retirement and financial freedom. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.